Here's a situation I would like you to think about. You are in the middle of a conversation in English, and you want to talk about something that happened before, something else in the past. You know the structure. You have studied it before. You have done the exercises. You can even explain the rule perfectly if you need to. And then you open your mouth, and out comes the simple past. Again, you say this: I lived there for 10 years before I moved to Miami. You don't remember to say, I had lived there before I moved to Miami. Just, I lived. Sound familiar? You know the rule, you just can't use it. And the more grammar you study, the more this keeps happening, with different structures and different conversations, over and over again. This is the grammar trap, and it's one of the main reasons intermediate learners stay intermediate for years. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what the trap is, why traditional grammar study walks you straight into it, and the three-part method that actually gets grammar out of your head and into your speech. Because ultimately, that's what you want to do. You want to be able to use everything you study. So, let's go. This grammar trap is actually three traps stacked on top of each other. Let's talk about the first one. Trap 1. You're only studying rules when you should also be studying patterns, and specifically functions. Here's what I mean. Most grammar courses and most learners approach a new structure by memorizing the rule. The first conditional, if plus present simple, then future simple. You memorize the formula. You do exercises that fit the formula, and you feel like you've learned it. That is great. I believe taking time to learn grammar rules is extremely beneficial for adult learners. But if you only do that, you have a problem. You've learned the shape of the structure, but you haven't learned what it does. And that's the part that actually matters in a conversation. Because in a real conversation, you don't have time to ask yourself, what's the formula for the first conditional? You ask yourself, how do I express this idea? So instead of focusing only on the rule, I want you to focus on the function, the use of that structure. What do we actually use the first conditional for? For example, well, we use to make predictions about the future. For example, if it rains tomorrow, we'll stay home. We use it to talk about cause and consequence. For example, if you don't sleep enough, you will struggle to concentrate. Another one, we use it to make threats or warnings. If you do that again, I'll report it to the manager. Three completely different communicative scenarios, one structure. And when you know those three situations, when you can feel them rather than just recite them, you start reaching for the first conditional naturally because you know what job it does. Now, patterns can be two things. They can be the function, as we just discussed, but they can also be chunks of language, full phrases or frames that you store in your brain as units and reuse them again and again. For example, if I were you, I'd. That's a chunk. You don't reassemble it every time from the conditional rule. You just know it. You reach for it whole. It's worth doing something. That's another chunk. For example, it's worth trying. It's worth asking. You store the whole chunk and you add whatever you need. Patterns, whether functions or chunks, are how fluent speakers actually carry grammar around with them, not as rules, as tools. But knowing the pattern is only the first step. The second trap is what happens or doesn't happen after you learn it. Before I get into the second trap, a quick word. If you're serious about moving past B1, one of the things you need is a clear map of the grammar structures that actually matter at B2 level. Not a list of every rule in the English language, but the specific patterns and functions that separate an intermediate speaker from an advanced one. The B2 Edge app presents you with exactly those core grammar topics in the right order, at the right depth, and then gives you an AI speaking coach to practice using them in real sentences. Not exercises, real active use. Link is in the description. Now, let's talk about trap number 2. Trap 2. You're studying grammar in isolation, disconnected from meaning, disconnected from real language, disconnected from you. Here is what grammar in isolation looks like. You open a grammar book, there's a chapter on the past perfect. You read the explanation. You look at the example sentences. Sentences about people you've never met, situations you've never been in, ideas that have nothing to do with your life. By the time Maria arrived, John had already left. Fine, grammatically correct, completely forgettable, isn't it? You do the exercises, you fill in the blanks, you get most of them right, you close the book, and then you move on. But 3 weeks later, in a real conversation, the past perfect doesn't come. Why? Because the past perfect was never connected to anything real in your mind. It was connected to Maria and John, who you don't know and you don't care about. Here's what grammar in context looks like instead. You encounter the past perfect in a film you love. A character says, by the time I realized what was happening, she had already moved on. And you feel the meaning, the sequence, the regret, the weight of that moment, that scene. The grammar arrives with emotion attached. Or you hear it in a song you love, or a podcast you follow, or an interview with someone you find compelling, or your favorite video game even. And because the context is real and the meaning is felt, the structure is more likely to stick. Grammar that arrives through real, meaningful context is grammar your brain files as useful. Grammar studied in isolation is grammar your brain files as academic, and academic information is the first thing that disappears under conversational pressure. Even if you fix these first two traps, even if you study functions instead of rules, and you study in context instead of isolation, there's still a third trap waiting. And this one is the most common of all. Trap 3. You learn a grammar structure and then you never apply it to your own life. This is the final piece, and it's the one that actually moves grammar from your head into your mouth. Here's what I mean. Once you've understood a new structure, its function, its pattern, even the rule, the next step is to produce sentences about your own life using that structure. Not example sentences from a textbook, sentences that are true for you. Let me give you a concrete example from my own learning experience. When I was learning the past perfect, I came across this sentence. Before going there, I had never traveled by plane. Instead of just noting that sentence and moving on, I did something very specific. I kept the frame. Before going there, I had never. And I changed only the ending. Before going there, I had never eaten sushi. Before going there, I had never spoken to a foreigner. Before going there, I had never felt so far from home. You see? And then I expanded the frame itself. Before moving to a new city, I had never. Before starting my first job, I had never. Before meeting her, I had never. Do you see what's happening there? I'm taking the core of the structure and drilling it with content that is real, personal, and memorable. My brain isn't storing abstract grammar. It's storing my own experiences. And the grammar is the vehicle those experiences travel in. This is the method I want you to apply to every grammar structure you study from now on. Learn the rule, yes, but also learn the function. Find it in context. And then immediately produce at least 5 sentences that are true for your own life using that structure. Not 5 sentences about Maria and John. 5 sentences about you. Think about the last grammar structure you studied. Can you produce 5 true sentences about your own life using it right now without looking at your notes? If the answer is no, that's the trap. And now you know how to get out of it. So let me land this. The grammar trap isn't studying too much grammar. It's studying the wrong way. Trap 1, obsessing over rules instead of learning patterns and functions. Trap 2, studying grammar in isolation instead of in real, meaningful context. Trap 3, learning a structure without ever applying it to your own life. And here is the shift I want you to make, the one that changes everything when it comes to your relationship with English grammar. Grammar develops through use, not before use. You don't need to master the past perfect, for example, before you're allowed to speak. You need to speak in order to master the past perfect. Every time you produce a real sentence in a real moment, even if imperfect at first, under pressure, you are teaching your brain to own that structure, and then it becomes part of your English. The learners who are still stuck at B1 after years of study are almost always the ones who treated grammar as a prerequisite to speaking. The ones who got to B2 and beyond are the ones who treated grammar as something that grew alongside their speaking and writing. That's the difference. And now, you know which side you want to be on. And don't tell me grammar is not important for an adult learner. If you believe that, you will stay stuck at B1 or B2 forever. That's just the hard truth. Learn to study grammar the right way by following these tips I gave you. Don't dismiss it entirely. If you want to put this into practice with the grammar structures that actually matter at B2 level, the B2 Edge app is where I would send you. The app maps out the core grammar topics you need to master to move from B1 to B2, presented as patterns and functions, not just dry rules. And the AI speaking coach puts you in real conversational situations where you have to use those structures under pressure. That's how grammar stops being an academic and starts being yours. Link is in the description. Do learn about the app. And here's your challenge for today. Pick one grammar structure you've studied recently. Write 5 sentences about your own life using it. Out loud, not in your head. Out loud. That's it. 5 sentences, your life, your grammar. And you can start by sharing your sentences here in the comment section below. I'm curious to see them. Do that consistently with every structure you study, and watch how fast the ceiling starts to move for you. I'm Thiago. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'll talk to you in the next video. And if you want to keep learning more, I highly recommend you watch this video next. Do check it out.